Commission, but also, okay, so now we're being recorded. So the aim of my presentation is to give you an overview of our activities as a commission, but I will also speak a bit more specifically on a training program for provenance research that we have been organizing in cooperation with the Free University of Berlin during the last 3 years. And but I will just start with a quick note on who we are as a commission and our main areas of research. The DBV-Kommission Provenienzforschung und Provenienzerschliessung is one of the commissions at the Deutsche Bibliotheksverband. I don't know how to translate it into English because unfortunately their website hasn't been translated into English, so I couldn't look it up. Anyway, so I'm going to try to translate whatever will need translation. And so our commission was originally founded as a sub-working group to the Commission on Manuscripts and Historic Prints in 2007. And in 2017, it has gained the status of a commission in its own right. So obviously, by that alone, you can see how much relevance provenance research has been gaining for libraries, also that it really needed the foundation of its own commission. The Commission's purpose is to offer guidance for libraries on issues of provenance in a broad sense. We are interested in making provenance information as accessible as possible in cataloging by enhancing standards of provenance description. More specifically, however, we also work on provenance issues related to cultural property losses. And this is why the 5 regular members and the 4 guest members of the Commission, you can see the names on the slide, but I won't be reading them out because that's not really that useful. But just know that some of our Commission members are librarians in a more classical sense. Others are specialists for Nazi-era provenance and for colonial contexts. So we really bring together various expertises. As you will easily notice on our website, the issue of cultural property losses gets a lot of emphasis in the work of our commission, which is also why I wanted to include a quick overview of the historical contexts that concern us. It is, of course, quite self-explanatory that provenance research on Nazi-era looted books is one of the main areas of our research. By signing the Washington Principles in 1998, the Federal Republic of Germany has committed itself to search for Nazi-era looted cultural items in public cultural collections and to find just and fair solutions for their rightful owners. Those principles were emphasized in 1999 by a joint declaration co-signed by the federal government, the Länder, and the national associations of city authorities. So this relates to the federal system in Germany because cultural institutions can be under the control of the Bund, which would be the case for my institution, the German National Library. But of course, we also have libraries that are being controlled by the Länder. And this would be the case of, for instance, the Saxon State and University Library in Dresden. But of course, we also have city libraries, which are being under the control of the cities. So in order to really make sure that regardless of this individual administrative control, public collections in any kind of public institution So the joint declaration kind of makes sure that in all these cases, public institutions are required to conduct provenance research. To support this, the German Lost Art Foundation grants financial funding to projects. So we really have some kind of institution that grants financial support and also that gives advice on how to conduct provenance research to institutions that can't do this on their own. And the German Lost Art Foundation also administers the Lost Art database as well as the Provenance database. So these are basically the structures that really are important to know about Nazi-era looted books and provenance research about it. A second area of research concerns World War II looted objects, so-called kriegsbedingt verlagertes Kulturgut. So by contrast to the term Nazi-era looted objects, the term World War II looted objects refers to collections that have been displaced in the direct context of World War II by the Wehrmacht or Nazi organizations or Allied units as well, such as, for instance, the Soviet trophy brigades in 1945. This is, of course, is still an issue also for German libraries today. Just thinking about the parts of libraries that are still in Russia. And of course, the dialogue with Russian libraries has now come to a complete standstill due to the war in Ukraine. A third, relatively new area of research are the collections from colonial contexts. While the highly publicized discussions of the last years have mainly aimed at ethnographic museums, the question of colonial contexts in libraries has recently also gained momentum. Libraries can hold written documents from colonial contexts, but they also may have photographic collections, missionary reports, or other types of texts that perpetuate a colonial gaze or Eurocentric perspectives on former colonies. A two-day workshop that was organized at the Berlin State Library in last November showed that the issue is really multifaceted and concerns a variety of collection types, and that there is a need for guidelines on how to handle these collections. Finally, our areas of interest also cover property losses in the Soviet occupation zone and the GDR. So during the land reform in the Soviet occupation zone, castles from aristocratic families were systematically confiscated, and the libraries from these castles were distributed to public institutions, but they also in some instances were sold to the antiquarian book market, and thus also reached West German libraries. In case of book confiscations during the land reform, a German law was passed in 1994 that regulates the return of these books to their original owners. The handling of other types of property losses from the GDR era, for example, the property left behind by people who fled from the GDR, is, however, not really quite regulated. There is no restitution law that applies to them, and there is no equivalent to the Washington Principles requesting a return on a moral basis. Nevertheless, it is clear that these property losses and the GDR-era circulation of books need to be systematically researched, and that we also need to understand their entanglements with the West German and even the international book market of the time. So much for our areas of interest. As you can see, they are quite vast, lots of historical contexts that concern us. And so what we as a 9-person commission try to do is basically to facilitate research. In short, we try to bundle expertise, we give advice, we foster networks, we train research, and we also initiate projects of our own. And I will now give you a more detailed overview of these activities. As I already said, the Commission has a keen interest in advancing the standards of provenance description in library catalogs. It is responsible for the so-called Provenienzwiki, a platform for the documentation of provenance marks and the persons and organizations they relate to. It also manages the so-called TEPRO, thesaurus, providing normed vocabulary for provenance description in catalogs. And in 2020, the Commission was instrumental in establishing a working group on provenance description at the German National Library's Office for Library Standards, Arbeitsstelle für Standardisierung, which really sounds very German. As you probably know, one of the first tasks of this working group consisted of proposing a new Mark 21 field, the field number 368, which will allow to implement structured provenance information in the Mark format, and really to facilitate the interoperability of provenance data. All these activities aim at a systematic, transparent, and long-term documentation of provenance information. As an expert group on provenance research in libraries, the Commission also sometimes takes up editorial tasks. In 2018, the Commission was a co-editor of the Provenance Research Manual, published in cooperation with the German Lost Art Foundation, ICOM, the German Museum Association, and the Arbeitskreis Provenienzforschung. The manual provides practical instructions on how to conduct provenance research on Nazi-era confiscated cultural items of all kinds. Its authors bring together various methodologies for research on books, but also paintings, prints and drawings, or decorative art. It has been translated into English in 2020 and is available to download on our website. The Commission is also a member of the Scientific Board for the online journal Transfer, Journal for Provenance Research and Collecting History, which has been founded also in 2020 or 21, I think. I think the first issue was published 2 years ago, the second last year, and so the third is due to be published at the end of this year. The journal is not limited to provenance in context of historical injustice, but welcomes contributions from various disciplines, contexts, and historical periods. And so it might also be an interesting publication platform for members of this working group in your respective research areas. In addition to advancing standards of provenance description and editing or supervising publications, the Commission also initiated own research projects. In 2017, the Commission conducted a survey on historic book collections in public libraries, which showed that quite a lot of public libraries, and by this we all often mean small city libraries or not so small city libraries, hold collections of books that were published before 1945. In order to get a more clear idea of the extent to which public libraries might hold Nazi-evaluated books, the Commission started a research project funded by the German Lost Art Foundation. And over the last 2.5 years, a researcher has been visiting a total of 15 libraries all over Germany and done a so-called Erstcheck, initial check. This means that during 2 weeks, he went through the accession books as well as a sample of the collections in each library with the purpose of checking whether there might be any evidence hinting at Nazi-evaluated books. The libraries participating at this initial check then received a report about the findings, as well as a recommendation on how they might continue the research or apply for project funding. And for us, of course, it's interesting to see to which extent books of this kind can be found in public libraries. So it's really an idea to get a more systematic overview on the situation in public libraries in this regard. More recently, the Commission has also started to tackle the issue of colonial contexts in libraries. As I already said, in November 2023, the Berlin State Library hosted a 2-day workshop on this topic, which was co-organized by the Berlin State Library and their project called In Context, which aims at digitization of material relating to colonial contexts. And another co-organizer was the network Koloniale Kontexte. The conference proceeding have recently been published as a special issue of the journal OBIP. And the idea of this workshop was really to bring together the state of the art. So just to see which projects are already existing, which are the problematics of colonial contexts in libraries, which types of collections are concerned. And we also realized that there is a need for guidelines to handle objects from colonial contexts in libraries. And so actually a new working group has been established, which will develop guidelines for the care of collections from colonial contexts in libraries. So this is quite recent. This has been set up this year. In terms of networking, the Commission acts as head office to the Arbeitskreis Provenienzforschung und Restitution Bibliotheken, an informal working group on provenance research and restitution in libraries. The working group communicates through a mailing list hosted by the Berlin State Library and holds annual conferences to enhance networking and the discussion of research projects or individual restitution cases. We also regularly participate at conferences such as the Bibliocon or more specialized symposiums like the Blaubeuren Symposium, which is really some kind of specialized platform for discussion on manuscripts and old prints, on issues of conservation, and on issues of provenance. Last but not least, our Commission is responsible for the contents of the so-called Zertifikatslehrgang Bibliothekarische Provenienzforschung, on which the last part of my talk will focus. So the idea for a training program for provenance research originally came up in the museum context. In 2017, the Weiterbildungszentrum, or Center for Advanced Training, I don't really know what the official translation is. Anyway, so there is the center which really fosters additional training in addition to the stuff you can study at the university. And so this center at the Free University of Berlin established a training program for museum professionals who wish to broaden their knowledge in the field of provenance research. The program received funding from the German Lost Art Foundation and took place at the Central Institute for Art History in Munich. It turned out to be a big success and has really become a staple of provenance research training in Germany. It's been hosted every year, either by the Central Institute for Art History in Munich or more recently at the Dresden State Art Collections. And I think some institutions in Berlin are also now being involved. Its participants receive a certificate, and I know several alumni of the program who are now really working as provenance researchers in museums. So this is really something that has established itself as something relevant and really something helpful also in order to train new provenance researchers. However, the training program being focused on museum collections and the research methodology in libraries being a bit different from the one applied to works of art, our commission soon considered setting up a second training program, which would specifically aim provenance research in libraries. Both the training center at the Free University and the German Lost Art Foundation were interested in this. And ultimately, the program has been created in a sort of three-way partnership. The German Lost Art Foundation provides financial funding, and the training center at the Free University manages the printing and distribution of the program leaflet, the application procedure, and the selection of participants. So they're really responsible for the administration and the management of this of the course. Eligible candidates for the program are librarians working in all types of libraries holding collections predating the year 1945, be it public
Salut, je dérange.
Thank you. Be it public or research libraries. Of course, we also welcome librarians from church and museum libraries or other types of special collections. We also welcome persons working in other types of cultural institutions, such as museums or archives, because, of course, there can also be persons working with historical book collections in an archive or museum. And we also accept applications from persons from the antiquarian book or auction market. Applicants have to submit a letter of motivation to the training center, and in a case there are more applications than available spaces, which has always been the case over the last 3 years, they also select the candidates that will be admitted to the course. The commission itself is not involved in the selection process, but we are basically primarily responsible for developing the contents of the program and for inviting the experts who would be teaching the individual workshops, because of course the commission can't do all the teaching of their own. The program consists of 3 modules comprising 2 days each. So in total, it's like 6 days over the course of 3 months. So in April, May, and June, the participants come and take part in the program. And so the first module is usually where the participants learn about book confiscations during the Nazi and GDR era and the foundations of provenance research in libraries. And the second module focuses on data models and principles of provenance description in library catalogs. And at the same time, it also introduces the participants to archival research and familiarizes them with the most important archival resources for provenance research. In the third module, the participants learn how to prepare a provenance research project, how to apply for funding, how to handle restitution cases, and to search for heirs. So it's also a bit about the legal implications of restitution cases. And they also learn how to communicate the results of provenance research to the public, be it press relations, social media, publications, or even exhibitions. Last but not least, they also receive an introduction to the topic of colonial context in libraries. So it's really a very vast program condensed in quite a short amount of time. And so far, all 3 modules took place at libraries and archives in Berlin. And they really rely on practical exercises, workshops in small groups, and hands-on approach, which is also really appreciated by the participants themselves. So evaluation really confirmed that this is a good way to go. However, this practical approach also limits the group to a maximum of 20 participants per year, as it is difficult to handle case studies in bigger groups. And so now we have been in our 3rd year this year, and it has really become clear that there is a high demand for it. This year alone, we received twice as many applications as there were spaces for participants. So, and actually, initially, it was also it would also have been possible for participants who would be interested in only one part of the program, but not the entirety, to apply just for 1 or 2 for modules, just for 2 days or 4 days, and not to follow the entire program. But due to the high demand of number of applications, we of course had to give priority to applicants interested in the entire program, which means that in practice, chances for taking part in the program are really higher when you really take the entire program and not just 1 or 2 individual modules. The high number of applications also led to a decision to give a higher priority to applications from public libraries, since many public libraries aren't aware of the need for research or don't have the capacities of conducting it. And we therefore hope that the training program really helps raising this awareness. And our evaluation for the last 3 years has also confirmed that the number of applications from public libraries hasn't been as high as from research libraries, of course, but it has been increasing. So unfortunately, we won't be able to offer the training program in 2025. Financial funding has only been granted for the first 3 years. And while all the partners agree that we want to continue the program, the application for funding will have to be renewed. So this is really the main reason why we can't set it up for 25. And but we will try to set it up and to provide a second round of trainings from 2026 to 28. And in that case, they will be hosted by libraries in Weimar, Dresden, and Leipzig. So my colleagues in Weimar and Dresden and myself are currently adapting the modules to the case studies and specificities of our respective collections here. And we will probably also put more emphasis on collections from colonial contexts, as the evaluation of the precedent years has shown that the participants would like to learn more about this. So this is actually where I would like to end my presentation. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you very much, Emily. That was very interesting, and you do a lot of things, and we wish to learn from you. So